So welcome to the Everything Marketplaces workshop today that is going to be on building and operating no-code marketplaces. So today's workshop is going to be led by Connor, who is the founder of Unicorn Factory. And you might have heard of Unicorn Factory as I've actually covered it in the guide to no-code marketplaces that I recently published, and included not only Unicorn Factory in it as a Webflow example, but I also included a founder interview and a kind of insight section from Connor there. So I'm super excited to welcome Connor to our Everything Marketplaces members workshop today, where he's going to walk us through kind of step by step on how he initially built Unicorn Factory using Webflow, some of the tools and integrations that he uses to operate it. And he's going to then kind of take us under the hood and show us a little bit more on the operational side on how he runs it as a marketplace that's completely no code in the day-to-day. So Connor, yeah, thanks for joining us here today. It's definitely great to have you on, and I'll let you take it from here.
Alrighty, well, hello everyone. So I just came to have a chat about this marketplace that I built called Unicorn Factory, which is a freelancer marketplace in New Zealand. I'll give you like a little bit of an introduction to who I am. So my name's Connor. I'm originally from Wellington, New Zealand, but I recently moved to Ottawa in Canada. So I actually moved here in July. My background is in freelance digital marketing. So after I finished uni, I started a startup with some friends, and they were both developers, so I had to learn something. So I opted for the digital marketing route. I also, after that all wrapped up, I started Unicorn Factory, which is a freelancer marketplace in New Zealand. So I kind of structured this presentation a bit like this. So first of all, I'll give you the rundown of what the Unicorn Factory is. Then I'm going to dive in specifically into how I built it. So the tools that I use, the kind of features that there are. And then I'm going to talk a bit about the whole code versus no code world, because that's kind of what the whole Unicorn Factory is kind of built on. It's built on a bunch of no code tools. But let's just dive in. So the Unicorn Factory is basically an online directory that allows local New Zealand businesses to find and hire local freelancers. So of course you have platforms like Fiverr, Upwork, and so on. But one thing that I found when I was freelancing and talking to clients is that it was really difficult for them to find people in their time zone. So being in New Zealand, pretty much everything is outside of our time zone. And, other than like agencies, it was actually very difficult to find people who could just come in and help you with like really specialized things like Facebook ads or build your website and all that type of stuff. So at the time I was working in a co-working space, I just started freelancing myself, and I kind of figured, you know what, if I build something like this, it will help me get a bit more work, but it's also kind of like a fun way to help friends out get more freelance gigs. And so I went ahead and built it. And so, the whole, unlike tools like Share Tribe or even like building things in Bubble, you kind of have to build everything from scratch. So like so the tools that I use don't really come with any pre-built components. So some of the features that I built that I can show you later on is like a freelancer dashboard, which is user accounts where a user can log in and kind of upgrade to like a paid account. They can ask for like introductions to job board listings that clients have put up on there. And I also, another little thing that I built that is quite fun is I built a system to basically make sure that the listings, so people's listing position changes dynamically based on the amount of page views that they'd get, how many inquiries they'd receive, to make sure that everyone will get their fair share of inquiries, especially if they were paid users. So just to give you some numbers on like kind of how it works, it's a pretty small marketplace, I'd say, in the grand scheme of things. We have 520 freelancers in New Zealand on the platform. We get about 250 inquiries per month. Clients post about 30 to 50 community jobs on there. So that's when, instead of getting in touch with freelancers directly, they actually just create like a job listing, and then I can put it on our freelancer dashboard, and then people can request introductions if they feel like they're a good fit for it. At the moment, I'm getting about 50 to 75 freelancers asking to join the platform each month. There was like a huge increase in that as soon as we went into lockdown in New Zealand, because a whole bunch of people had a lot of spare time on their hands and figured, hey, why not get into freelancing and, try and create some extra revenue on the side. In terms of the types of freelancers that we have, so we have people who have just graduated from university, so a lot of design students who just want to see if they can make money freelancing. It's usually like in that phase in between working for a design studio and graduating. Then we have people who just do it as a side hustle. So we have like a lot of like copywriters or editors or photographers who actually have full-time jobs, but they just work on smaller projects on the side. Then we also have like your pros, so people who do it full-time. Then we also have like small studios, so people who have like 3 to 4 employees and so on. So far we've had about 1,300 businesses that have used the Unicorn Factory, and that is probably like in the last 15 months. And last year, our top earner made 111 grand off leads that came through the Unicorn Factory, which is quite exciting because I kind of started this as a hobby. So to be able to get someone $100,000 worth of leads is pretty good. So what this is really about is kind of how I built the Unicorn Factory. And so at the time when I started the Unicorn Factory, I came from a marketing background. I couldn't design or code to save myself. So I stumbled across a few tools that were very non-coder friendly. And I just want to show you what tools I used and how I use them. And yeah, so I'm just going to dive straight into that. So the first tool that I used is Webflow. So if you don't know what Webflow is like a website builder, probably quite similar to Squarespace or Wix. The main difference between those tools is that you can actually export the code. So you're really building a website, you're basically writing code visually. So everything that you kind of drag and drop together actually creates HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So say, for example, you want to work with developers, you could in theory use Webflow to build the entire front end. Then you can just export the code, and the code is so clean that freelancers, that developers can really just pick it up and work with it. So that was a huge draw card for me, because at the time I was working with 2 developers who were getting tired of me asking for more features. So they said, go and learn how to build a website. And when I mocked up the first version of our website and exported the code and gave it to them, they thought I had learned how to code HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in no time. So I kind of felt good about it, and that kind of motivated me to keep going on the whole Webflow train. So I used Webflow for the entire front end of the Unicorn Factory. So all the freelancer and client facing stuff happens inside of Webflow. What makes Webflow particularly good for directories or marketplaces is their CMS. So their CMS allows me to create template pages for the freelancers or for the case studies that I add to the website. And then from there, I can use their CMS or their internal database to basically populate information on those particular freelancers. And every time I add a new freelancer and their information, it automatically creates a new page. So it's a real awesome way to, create directories like that. So that's tool number 1. Tool number 2 is Zapier. So I think Zapier is probably a bit more known across just, even beyond the no-code circles. Like Zapier is used by a lot of different businesses doing a lot of different things. But if you don't know what it is, basically what it is, it's an automation tool that connects over 2,000 apps with each other. So basically what Zapier does for the Unicorn Factory is it connects all the different tools that I use. So Webflow, Airtable, and all those kind of things with each other, and basically allows me to automate some workflows that would otherwise, if I had to do it manually, I'd never be able to do. They actually have a real cool little calculator that tells you how much time it saved you. And I checked it out the other day, and apparently they've saved me 17 weeks worth of time in tasks. So Zapier is a real awesome tool to use. It's also reasonably easy to learn. As soon as you've set up your first Zap, like it's really easy to understand how the whole tool as a whole works, and you can connect it with over 2,000 tools, which is particularly awesome because that way you can just use the tools that you're most comfortable with. Next up, I have Airtable. And now Airtable is what I use as my database. So when I started the Unicorn Factory, I basically used the Webflow CMS as my database, but it made it really difficult to stay on top of things. For example, it was really difficult to keep up with the changes that freelancers wanted me to make. Adding new things wasn't always super easy. And then I discovered Airtable, and basically Airtable just simplified having content across different platforms. So Airtable is kind of like the one place where I store everything. So whenever a freelancer signs up, whenever a client makes an inquiry, whenever a transaction happens on the site, I just run everything through Airtable, and Airtable will then control the flow of information. So as soon as I do things like approve messages, it sends off certain it does certain automation like forward an email to a freelancer and so on. So Airtable is like the hub for the Unicorn Factory that stores all information. And then the last, and probably for my business at the time, most important tool is Memberstack. So what Memberstack is it is a third-party integration that you can put on Webflow sites, and basically what it allows you to do is hide content from certain types of users. And it also allows you to charge people. So it runs like subscriptions. You can allow people to upgrade to like a monthly membership fee and stuff like that. And up until Memberstack came along, what I'd do is I'd be sending people Stripe checkout links and they would never pay. So it was very difficult to make money off my site. The thing that I like most about Memberstack is that it was actually created by two dudes who came from the Webflow world, which meant they built Memberstack for Webflow. So it integrates very, very seamlessly. And even though it was like a little bit of a mission to set up at the start, once it's up and running, it's really powerful just in terms of generating revenue. And for me, using Memberstack was a real game changer, because as soon as I had Memberstack, I could start charging for the platform. And as soon as I could start charging for the platform, I could start reinvesting into ads. And that just like helped me grow the business quite a bit faster than how I would have otherwise had to do it. All right, so now I just want to show you like some workflows, how certain types of workflows on the Unicorn Factory work and how they all fit together. And I think the simplest one to show you is how direct messages work. So you can see on the screen there that every freelancer has a form on their page, which is basically an inquiry form that clients can go and fill out with their contact details, phone number, and messages. As soon as they submit that form, that information is sent to a record in Airtable, which is in the all messages table. So every single message or form that's submitted on a freelancer page goes through there. From there, what I can do is I can review that and then approve it. And as soon as it moves, as soon as I approve it, it moves into a new view, which is a filtered view of a specific table that I call approved messages. So all of those messages that get approved get moved into there. And what that does is in Zapier, that triggers automation that then forwards on the inquiry to the freelancers and sends them emails like this here. And so that is like the most basic Zap that I set up for forwarding inquiries onto freelancers. That was really the first place where I started. And that was probably one of the only Zaps that I used for the first few months. But since then, I've used a similar process to basically connect all the tools that I use. So say, for example, a client makes an inquiry, a freelancer applies to join, a freelancer wants an introduction to one of the client projects, or a freelancer makes a payment. All of those things, I use Zapier to run through Airtable, and then from there, I use that to trigger certain types of actions. So say, for example, I approve a freelancer to join the platform. As soon as I've approved it inside of Airtable, it triggers the onboarding process, or it sends tweets. Or if a freelancer makes a payment, it goes through Airtable. Once those changes are approved in Airtable, it does things like upgrades their profile to a premium account. So really, the key thing for me here is that I've used all of these tools to kind of bring them together to basically run a little marketplace without having a coding or a design background. And so those were the first 4 tools that I started with. Since then, I've added a few other ones. So one is JetBoost. So what JetBoost does is it's another third-party integration designed for Webflow sites. And what it allows you to do is to filter collections. So for example, you can do dynamic search in listings. So for example, if you type in a name or a particular skill or a location, it automatically filters that. And again, this was something that did not exist natively inside of Webflow. And then a Webflow user just went out and built it. So we've got a really, the Webflow community is really great for that type of stuff. They just go ahead and build the features that Webflow hasn't built yet. The next tool is Integromat. And so Integromat is very similar to Zapier. I don't really use Integromat that often. However, I did start using it a bit because Integromat is significantly cheaper than Zapier. So I'm pretty sure I pay Integromat like $9 a month, whereas I pay Zapier about $100 a month. And the reason why I decided to use Integromat is, even though it's like not as intuitive as Zapier, it's cheap enough to move your highest activity tasks in Zapier over to Integromat so that you don't jump into the next pay bracket. So I basically pay Integromat $9 to not have to pay Zapier like an extra $89 a month. And they just manage all my high volume tasks. And then the last one is Parabola. And Parabola is like a phenomenal tool, is another automation tool. And it's honestly like, it's game changing. I won't go into too much detail about it, but basically what it allows me to do is to keep my databases in sync. So I've got information stored in Webflow, Airtable. I use MailerLite for my emails, and I've got it in all these different places. And in order to make sure that all the data is always consistent across all the different platforms, I use Parabola, which basically once a night basically runs automation to make sure that all the information that is currently stored in database is the same in Webflow and all the other tools that I use. That is something that Zapier doesn't really do. So if I had to describe the biggest difference between Parabola and Zapier, then I'd say that Zapier is what you use for one-off events like webhook type automation. So when someone submits an application or someone sends a freelancer a message, but you use Parabola to basically update large data sets and basically sync everything between each other. All right, so here's a little bit of an overview of how much I pay for each tool each month. All up, I pay around 255 US dollars per month to run the whole platform. When I started, I think I didn't pay more than, I think I paid about $50 a month. So to kind of like get something up and running, a little MVP, you just really have to pay for Webflow hosting, Zapier, which you can use on one of their lower plans, and Airtable, which usually there's so many free promo codes going around that you don't even really have to pay for it. I think I paid for like 2 months worth of Airtable, and then from there I've just been getting credits like non-stop, so I haven't paid since then. Now, how much does the Unicorn Factory make? So here's an overview of how much revenue I'm making. At the moment, it kind of varies a bit between $4,000 a month and $6,000 a month. And that's a combination of like membership fees. So I have a monthly plan where I charge people $25 a month. And then I also have like an annual membership, which is $99 a month. And then, so the blue bar is also like little revenue share agreements that I have with different freelancers. So when I refer certain types of work with them, I just send them an invoice and I get paid a share of the revenue. When I started the Unicorn Factory, like my primary objective was to get work for myself. So I didn't really start it with the idea of it being like a business. I was just kind of like, look, if I can get work for myself, sweet. And if I can help other people in the process, that's cool too. And so it was kind of like small, steady growth, basically always covered its own costs. But I recently made some changes to my business model. So the membership fees have now gone up to $3.99 per year. Plus I have like different plans for different types of freelancers. And so I've just started to implement all of that now. So next year I'll give you an update on how it all went. So far, no one has churned. No, well, some have, but not too many. All right, so what's next for the Unicorn Factory? So I've moved to Canada, which means the first thing that I had in mind was, you know what, I'm going to set it up in Canada and build this like multinational marketplace. But to be completely realistic, it's like just a way, it's like a really good way to like do localized, like connect people locally. That was kind of the whole plan with New Zealand. So I'd never like had this like grand vision of it being like this huge international competitor to Fiverr or Upwork or whatever. I was just kind of like, you know, I want to build something for locals. And now that I'm in Canada, specifically in Ottawa, I want to do the same. And so that is the next step in my journey. I'm actually going to record the process of me building it. So I'll give some updates on that in the future, but I just kind of figured I'd show people how it can be done, because if you don't have a coding background and you are already familiar with tools like Webflow and Zapier, this is like a really great way to build a small local business and to support your niche community. Like in my case, freelancers, but I've seen people do it with all sorts of different things like charities and so on. Okay, so that is kind of like the rundown of the Unicorn Factory. I just thought I would share like another 2 cents on the whole code versus no code discussion, mostly because there's this time where I did like a version of this presentation in front of a bunch of developers. And, you know, if you're not a developer and you're drag and dropping together things, you get a lot of hate. So I thought I would make this like quick little code versus no code slide. And there was this quote that I saw on Twitter that perfectly described the value of no code. And so, you know, writing code is using like a pro DSLR camera, whereas like the no code world is kind of like a smartphone camera where, you know, you don't need to know all the ins and outs. And you can still get things up and running without being like a full-on pro who knows how to edit and use pro cameras and stuff like that. Now, the pros of the no code versus coding thing is I tried to learn how to code. I did Code Academy. I watched YouTube tutorials. I could never even get a terminal up and running. So, you know, there's like a huge learning curve when it comes to like learning how to code. Whereas with no code, that there is still a learning curve there. However, you can get something up and running a lot faster, and most importantly, you can have those moments of feeling like you're making progress a lot more often. And I think that those moments are like key to keeping going. I could never have those moments really with coding because there's so much stuff that you need to do to even get something really basic up and running. The next thing is it's really cost effective. So like, you know, when I started, I was paying $50 a month to basically build my own marketplace and to really validate if it's something that will work or not. And, you know, if you invest the time to learn the basics of how these tools work, you can really build these things reasonably fast, and you can see if there's an actual business opportunity there or not. The next thing that I love about it is that you're not dependent on anyone. So one thing that I've always seen with people who hire developers or other people to build their platforms is, you know, building the platform is one thing, but once it's built, how are you going to make changes without constantly having to get developers to help you out with it? So no code, like I've built platforms like this for other people, and I've just handed off to them, and they've been able to like build on top of what I already gave them. And the good thing about that is that you can just keep going without having to like rely on someone else. Of course, there are also some downsides to the no code thing. So the first thing is like you're building within limitations. So I can't just build any odd feature. I have to work within the limitations of the tools. And so I couldn't really monetize my platform very effectively before Memberstack came along, or I couldn't really create like a super intuitive user like filtering system before JetBoost came along. So when you're working with no code tools, you're always working within the limitations of the tools, which can be good. But you know, at the end of the day, if you are dreaming up certain types of features, and those tools don't exist, you just can't make it happen. Another thing that personally I'm not a huge fan of in the no code world is like the whole concept of like testing, like on staging platforms, just does not exist. Like when I'm working in the Unicorn Factory, the changes that I make to the Unicorn Factory, they get tested in real time. So like, when I hit that publish button, it gets published with all the bugs and all that kind of stuff, which in a way is cool because it creates a lot of urgency when you get a message from someone going, hey, my profile's disappeared, can you please fix it? But it's definitely like one of those things about these types of no-code tools that's a bit difficult, is that you're always testing in production, which is like not great, I'd say. So I'm going to leave it at that so we can do a little bit of Q&A, but I've got a more detailed breakdown of some tutorials on my website. So I've got a video where I kind of go over how I use Parabola, so you can go and check that out here. And then in case this is something that you're interested in, if you want to learn a bit more about Airtable, a friend of mine does these real awesome tutorials on YouTube. So his address, it's called Automate All the Things. So definitely check that out. The resource that I used to learn how to do Webflow was their university. It's like probably like the best resource for on how to learn any tool. And look, I'll be honest with you, Webflow, if you don't come from like a design background where you're familiar with how Figma and stuff like that use, can take a little time to get going. But I honestly think that the hardest period is like 2 weeks. Once you get over the other side of those 2 weeks, you can really build some pretty amazing things with it. So yeah, that is pretty much it. I can show you the Unicorn Factory, how it looks like in real life if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great if you can just like kind of walk through it, maybe like the current site briefly.
Yep. Okay, so this is it. It's got a directory, so I can kind of show you how the search functionality of it works. So It's just a search bar. It's like, you know, probably in the grand scheme of things, like not the most exciting feature, but, you know, for us in the Webflow world, we didn't have this for so long. So now it's kind of like amazing. And you can filter it, you know, based on how available different types of freelancers are, what their experience is. And like this here was really, really phenomenal in terms of helping clients find the right people immediately, because you could just type in their rates, you could type in what kind of, you know, what kind of service you're looking for, and it will just give you the search results pretty much immediately, which was really game changing. Then we have our showcase page, and I've got about 100 case studies, 700 case studies on here. And again, you can just go ahead and search it by, you know, whatever service you're looking for. And then this here is the freelancer dashboard. So the way it works is clients post to our job board. And then if a freelancer wants to have an introduction to that particular client, they can just jump in there, tick all the check boxes, request an introduction, and then I just do a manual email introduction to the client. And this is a paid feature. So that was something that really allowed me to start making a little bit of money off the platform, and it was really, really good, a really good way to add value. Also built a little analytics dashboard, which tells you how many page views you've had in the last 30 days. So this information here is comes from Google Analytics, and I use Parabola to update that every single day. So all these values update depending on, you know, what is currently in Airtable. And so that is probably like the key features. Then I also have Webflow. So here's a little look behind the scenes of Webflow. So if you haven't seen it before, it's really easy to use. So you can just jump in here. You can change text really easily.
Hey, Connor, I actually had a question for you about this, because you did mention earlier that basically, you know, you're updating features real time. So do you kind of clone the project within Webflow and make changes to another project, or do you just kind of stick to this one and actually do it all real time?
What do you mean by that? Like, do I make those changes?
Yeah. So do you have like another template where basically, you know, you kind of like clone your own unicorn factory template within Webflow?
So no, not really. So with that being said, I do have a clone. So I've now hired someone who helps me with my Webflow stuff. But basically what we do is when we have like bigger features that we want to build, then we do it in the clone project. But usually if it's like smaller visual updates, we just do it in here, or we just go ahead and build a new page, and we just do it straight in Webflow, and we just publish it immediately, which is really good because you get things done faster. But you can hide certain pages. So like I have, for example, this component page that I don't think is actually up to date, but you can just hide these pages so that they don't get indexed in Google. So you don't need to publish it immediately. You can work on it over the course of a few days, but I tend to not only make, like if we're working on bigger features, we do it in a different project, but normally we just do it inside of here.
Awesome.
I think one other thing that I was going to show you is just the profiles template. So the way that the CMS works is you can dynamically populate content. So you build a template. Let's have a look at mine. So you build your template, and then inside of that template, you can just basically fill out the Webflow CMS with all the different types of fields, and that will then automatically populate that template page. So this is what is so this is where Airtable sends all of the user information. I would show you the behind the scenes of Airtable, but I have too much real user data in there, and you know, given that this is being recorded, it's like probably I shouldn't. But yeah, you just put all the information in here. I used to actually, when I started off, do it manually inside of here, but then I discovered Airtable and Zapier, and so now it all happens automatically. So it goes straight from form submission into Airtable into Webflow. So yeah, it's really awesome. So that's that. I'll show you behind the scenes of Zapier. So at the moment, I'm using 40 different Zaps to basically power the Unicorn Factory. So for example, what's a good one? Say for example, if I approve a freelancer, this is what the process looks like. Just a second. So the first step here is it moves, the freelancer is moved into a view inside of Airtable called the approved freelancer view. And as soon as they're moved in here, it starts the automation. So there's text formatting that happens, but then it creates the item inside of Webflow. So that is basically the process of filling out that form that I just showed you. So instead of having to do it manually, I can just pull all the information that Zapier provides here, and I can just fill out the fields in here. Then I can send it to MailerLite. I can invite a user to Circle, which is like our community forum, and I can do little types of things in Memberstack. So it's really a fantastic way to connect all the tools to each other. And I do that with, so I have 40 different Zaps that basically power all the workflows that I'd otherwise have to do manually, just happen automatically through here. And then I've got Parabola. So this is that analytics dashboard that I showed you on the freelancer dashboard. This is what it looks like behind the scenes. So every night I import the last 30-day page views for freelancer profile pages, connect it up with the freelancer table and Airtable, and then then I update it, send it to Memberstack, and so on. So I actually have a tutorial on how I do this in a bit more detail. I'm not going to bore you with the ins and outs of it right now. But in short, what this does is every night at midnight New Zealand time, the automation runs and basically allows me to update page views, and it also allows me to update the score that I give freelancers that determines where they are ranked on the website. And then last but not least, I was going to show you another project that I worked on, another directory, which is a platform called Chive. And so this is a directory in New Zealand that allows people to find and sign up to different charities. So again, it has a very similar build to the Unicorn Factory, where the idea behind it is we want to make it easy for people in New Zealand to find charities and causes that they care about so that they can support them. And what is really powerful here is that a lot of these charities don't have the funds to like promote themselves. So this platform is a real good way for like grassroots charities to get exposure to like a wider group of people. And again, it works in a very similar way. The donate now button just sends people to their donate page on their website. Again, we have the directory set up with a basic search feature where you can type in things like mental health and it will filter out all the mental health charities and so on. So this again I built for someone who came to me after seeing a tutorial that I put up online. And the main reason why they wanted to build it using this stack is because they wanted to be able to make changes to the platform themselves without having to involve me all the time. So I built it for them. It took about 3.5 weeks, handed it off to them. And ever since then, they've just been, tinkering away and doing their own thing with it. So it's just a really great way for like non-coders to get started in building a platform like this. And yeah,
that's
that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing more on the kind of behind the scenes with us. So I had another question myself before we get into it with the group here. So do you have like a Slack setup with integration? So that way that's kind of like your admin panel or where you get all your notifications and can see all the different transitions, or is that just within your inbox or what?
Yep, no, I get everything through Slack. So I actually have a Slack channel for notifications. And so every time I get an inquiry or I have to review something, it just pops straight into there. We also have a Slack notification when one of our freelancers closes a deal, which is particularly awesome because what happens is a whole bunch of GIFs pop up and everyone in the channel hits like emoji buttons and like there's a little party that goes on in there. So yes, I use Slack a lot. Yeah, just for like notifications and all that type of stuff.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, we have something similar with Studio Time when we get new subscriptions. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
good fun. Just yeah.
Yeah.
But I have to, honestly, I have to use Slack because otherwise there's so much information that goes through the site that honestly, if I didn't get those notifications, I'd like have no idea of what's going on the site.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Hey, we're going to jump into some questions if that's cool with you. So
yeah.
Awesome. Hey, Manny, did you want to come on with the question you sent me?
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you, Connor. And yeah, welcome to Canada as well. I'm also in Canada myself. So I had a question about how you balance kind of product revamps versus customer requests since you're kind of doing it yourself. How do you kind of manage these two things? Like, is there a roadmap? Do you update people on, I'm upgrading this part of the thing, or do you just kind of do it as it comes?
Yeah, so I'm very, very lazy. So basically what happened was I built the MVP. Then I went through a period of kind of being motivated to build a lot of product things. But then one thing that I realized after a while is that like the more you build, you don't necessarily make it easier for yourself. So now I try to not build many new features at all unless it makes me more money or saves me time. And so the things that I have done, so the way that I usually do it is I sit down like once a quarter and I kind of look at what am I spending most of my time on. And then I think about how I can get rid of that, or how I can like smoothen out that process. So that really dictates my product roadmap. But again, like I'm not a huge, I kind of feel like constant product improvements only work if it is for making more money or if it's for like improving certain types of processes. I try to spend most of my time on like user acquisition. Like my number one priority for the Unicorn Factory is to get freelancers more work. And so when I do allocate time to it, that's mostly what I focus my time and energy on. But of course, like if it makes sense to build something, I do go ahead and build it. And now that I have a website full of freelancers who can help me with my Webflow stuff and some automation stuff, there've been a few additional things that we've built. For example, the analytics dashboard, that wasn't like super necessary, but it was like easy enough to build. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
All good.
Awesome. That was a good question. Hey, Doc, did you want to come on?
Cool, man. Hey, Connor, I just want to say thanks so much, man. I saw your, I think you put this out or on MakerPad a couple months ago, part of the presentation, or maybe they took it from you and bootlegged it. I'm not sure if you did it, but I saw the presentation on the Unicorn Factory and it was awesome. So just really good stuff, man. I had a question because I like building a lot of stuff, and a lot of times with marketplaces, I've been going back and forth with ShareTribe and building stuff there. And for clients, for the most part, I've been doing that with ShareTribe. And I was going to start back a couple months ago. I was going to start building. I was watching your like a breakdown. It was like 45 minutes or something like that. And I kept getting stuck, and I'm like, should I really do this, or should I just keep building in ShareTribe? So I want to try doing it in Webflow, but let me ask you this, why didn't you use ShareTribe? What was it, because of the cost, or did you want more features that ShareTribe didn't have it? So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so to be completely honest, I didn't even really know about ShareTribe. Like I did like little to no research in anything. Like I was learning Webflow, And like the Unicorn Factory was like a great project to practice in Webflow. So like, honestly, if I had heard about ShareTribe, maybe I would have given it a go in ShareTribe. But really it was, you know, like the one thing that I've kind of realized over time is like, the tools are like not super important. Like I use the tools that I use because I'm most familiar with it. And I know exactly that there are going to be like certain types of people who are probably better off building something like this in Bubble or building something like this in ShareTribe. I would probably say like the best strategy is to stick with the tools that you're most comfortable with. And I feel like as soon as you build like something, like the most basic version of it, you start like building that dynamic of that marketplace of helping like demand meets supply, then from there you're kind of committed to that platform for a while anyway. Like I've thought about a lot like what it would look like if I were to scale it up. Like say for example, I wanted to go from it being 500 freelancers to like more. You know, like at the moment I'm kind of like at the moment Webflow and Zapier and all that stuff works for me, but I feel like as I grow, maybe it wouldn't. And in that case, I might look at something like actually just coding it out. But the reason why Webflow works for me is because it got me to the point where I was able to generate revenue off it. And I've been able to like keep growing that. But as soon as I hit that plateau, and it's because of the technical side of things, that is the moment where I then start worrying about like looking at other different types of platforms. But to summarize it, I'll just stick with the tools that you're most comfortable with, you know, like the things that work most for you, and then just review it in different periods.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
All good.
Awesome. Cool. Actually, Dan had a pretty good question.
This is a great conversation. Thank you. You're amazing. You're amazing. This is like candy. So I'm working with ShareTribe. First of all, I just want to say I didn't know about Webflow, and I'm generally happy with ShareTribe, but I'm cognizant of limitations that the further I get into it. My question is, I'm also thinking about an analytics dashboard for my sellers, and I'm wondering what caused you to build it, and then once you built it, what were the effects it generated, both ones you expected and ones that were unanticipated?
Okay, so that's a great question, and I'm happy you brought that up because I actually was in this situation with a different business as well. And honestly, I feel like the return on building an analytics dashboard is never as big as you think it is. Like what is the information that someone really wants? And like when they have that information, what are they going to do with that information? And say, for example, that information is so important to them to make decisions. Why can they not just ask you? Like if a freelancer got in touch with me and was like, dude, I need to know how many page views I've had or how many people have clicked on my portfolio link, I'd be like, sweet, here you go. I've just looked it up in Google Analytics. Like what time frame do you want? Like you don't need to build like a super customized like dashboard explaining like breaking down every single little thing for them. But like for some reason, analytics is the one thing that everyone says that they want. But like, I was just like, you know what? Let's see if how badly people want this. So I made it a pro feature to see if anyone would upgrade to get their analytics. Nah, no one. Like, it's such a neat to have feature that really like doesn't really move the world. But like the one thing that you could do is you could like create like a tab on your like website that says analytics, and then say on there, just be like, if you want any analytics, let me know and I'll send them to you, because at the end of the day, it's like the information that they want. So it shouldn't really matter how it's displayed. And if enough people ask you, that's like the perfect example. Like if enough people ask you, and it starts becoming really time consuming to send people Google Analytics reports, then build it and automate it. Or that's at least the philosophy that I have when it comes to that kind of stuff. But yeah, analytics is a funny one.
Thank you.
No worries.
That's a good question. Hey, Connor, I actually had a question for you, and that's how when you introduce new features, or you're just kind of communication with the supply side, or even with the demand, how much of that is through the product, whether that be through kind of like tooltips, kind of like, just an actual product experience and updating that, versus like an email directly, whether that be you doing that manually or automated?
Yeah, so I put feature updates into our community forum. So I have a community forum that we run through Circle.
Yeah.
I sometimes also put it in Slack, and occasionally I put it into our newsletter as well. To be completely honest with you, there are like a lot of times where I don't even tell people that there are like certain features that I've added, because like people like, I've kind of found like, do people really care? Or are you just incredibly proud of this new feature that you've built? And so when I have built a feature that I'm incredibly proud of, then I'm going to be telling everyone about it. But I usually just tell our no-code friends on Twitter instead of our actual community. But if it's like something that like improves their user experience significantly, then of course it makes sense to go and put it out there. Like one feature that I built that was requested for a long time was the ability to update their profiles. It seems so basic of a feature, like I'm sure like if you look at it in ShareTribe, it would be easy as, but like it was such a pain to do in Webflow. But eventually I sat down, figured out how to do it and built it. And then because that is something that improves the platform as a whole, because now people are updating their availability, they're like improving their profiles, it made sense to just go and notify everyone, being like, hey, everyone, you can now update your profiles here. But when I do things like make some small changes to like the search functionality and stuff like that, I don't always tell people, because I'm kind of like, why?
Yeah.
Unless a newsletter is going out and I need to pad it with some content, then I go, friends, go and check out our unbelievable search filtering that I've built for us.
Yeah. Definitely. Hey, so as far as the ability for a user to update their own, their information, so you're not having to do it directly, at like what point of time was that for you? Because I'm actually like messing around in Webflow myself right now, and I feel like that's kind of a significant functionality that you have to build.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, let's put it this way. I didn't have it for probably a year, and people did ask for it, but people didn't push me for it. But then as more people started signing up, I started getting like harassed about it. So that was like the moment where I was like, okay, time to build this feature. And like, honestly, I feel like editing profiles in Webflow is probably like one of the things that a lot of people in the no-code world who use a similar stack have struggled with. But I can tell you right now the quick rundown of how I do it, because it's really a hack.
Yeah.
But basically what it is a freelancer just resubmits the sign up form, and then I use automation to update the existing form. And as soon as that happens, it triggers all the automation. So I am actually going to make a video on this, on how it works, because whenever people see that no-code video that I put up, I think I get about like 80% of the messages I get is, hey, great video. How do I edit profiles? So I will make a video on how it works. But in short, it's like a hack where you basically get your users to resubmit the application form, and then you send that data over to the existing freelancer record inside of Airtable. And then you can use tools to just basically send that information back and forth. But it works. It's not like it's not the like slickest. It's not the slickest thing in terms of how it looks. Like, it doesn't look native. I just like do it all through Airtable forms, because Airtable forms allows me to do more than Webflow forms. But that comes at the expense of it looking like an Airtable form instead of it looking like it's something that's actually part of the website. But at the end of the day, like, you're just there to actually help them do something, in which case it's updating their profile. So really what the form looks like really shouldn't matter, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, thanks for sharing that little tip. So it'll be
No worries.
super helpful. So cool. We're almost out of time here. So yeah, is there any kind of like last insight, maybe, you know, whether it's like on the build side or operational side that you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think there are a few things that help me with the Unicorn Factory. So I do treat it as like a side project. I still freelance myself. So like I have to kind of be, I have to be very cautious of how I use my time. So the way that I decided to use my time was to kind of pick like one objective, which is my job is just to get more work for freelancers. So all the decisions that I make on a day-to-day basis have to work towards getting more freelancer work. You know, like I'm not going to start blogging. I'm not going to start doing this and that. You know, I'm just going to focus on like, does it get more work for freelancers? And then the other two things that I do to make decisions is, does it make me more money or does it save me more time? I kind of feel like, especially when you're in the product build space, it's very easy to find yourself in a situation where you're like, get comfortable with a tool and you're like, you know, you're like, oh man, this is awesome. I know how to do all these types of things. And before you know it, you're spending 95% of your time actually building something. And I just kind of found like what really helped me move forward is just to like focus on, is this getting more work for freelancers? Is it saving me time or is it making me more money? And then that way you can do something like this on a part-time and it's not stressful and it's, you know, and it kind of generates like enough money to like make it a fun little side project.
Got it. Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks for sharing more on that. Hey, actually, so Tate had a question. Is it, do you have like a few more minutes maybe?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Hey, Tate, did you want to come on?
Yeah. Hey, Connor, thanks so much for doing this. I think one thing, by the way, product is wonderful. Thank you for taking us under the hood. I think one thing our community gets bogged down in a little bit is kind of conversations about building. And I'm really fascinated in understanding the sales process. I'm just curious if you could dig into kind of your process when you're getting started, and you talk now about spending a lot of time helping others get more work. What does your outreach process look like?
Oh, I'm very, very glad that you asked, because that is probably like the one thing that, well, I come from a marketing background. So before I even started getting into building these types of things, my job was like lead generation for different businesses. So we have a few different ways that we get work. I'll probably say when I started, I just used Google Ads because, like, honestly, people are searching for like freelancers in Auckland, or someone's looking for a web developer here and there. So like demand for it already exists. So that kind of kicks things off. So Google Ads is just a really good way to do it. I also use Facebook retargeting just to like remind people that we exist. And like one thing that you'll find over time is as you invest that little bit, so I would always just reinvest the money that I'd make in membership fees right back into ads. And that would allow me to get more clients to hire freelancers. And that automatically leads to the point where you're adding a lot of value to the platform. So now freelancers are telling their friends about how much work they're getting through the site. So now you get more applications. And so, and also like, it's like my business model at the start wasn't really like, there was no sales that I really had to do. It was like, honestly, it's like free to sign up, or like $99 to get about like 4 leads a month. And it's like a no-brainer. If you convert one of those leads, you've paid for like 8 years worth of the Unicorn Factory. So it's not like it was like I was asking a lot, but I really found using paid acquisition to get clients, so like the demand side of the platform going, added a lot of value to the supply side. And then the supply side took care of itself through word of mouth and just referrals. But one other thing to keep in mind, if you are looking for ways to attract the supply side, if you're like running ads targeting clients, the supply side is going to see that as well. And if they're like a freelance copywriter, they're going to be like, oh, whoa, I want to be on this thing as well. So really, you are targeting like the demand side, so the client side of things, but you're picking up all these extra freelancers on the side as well. And like, I definitely feel that there's a place for sales, and I feel it's actually a very important place for sales. But the reason why I decided not to like jump on calls and have like sales calls with freelancers is because I'm charging them $99. Like, honestly, like how much, like, it's like, how much effort do you really want to put into like explaining to a freelancer how they're going to get value for $99? Like, even now, it's like, now that I charge $399, the main reason I charge that is because like, so they get 2 free leads to start off with. And it really is just like a good filtering mechanism. It's like, if someone can't invest that type of money for like a year's worth of potential leads in their business, then like you kind of filter out people who are not taking it seriously anyway. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. Cheers. Thanks, Connor.
Awesome. That was a great question. Glad we got to ask that.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time on marketing. Like, in terms of like, I'll probably say nowadays I spend 20% of my time on product, and then about 40% of my time on marketing. So those specific marketing tactics, and then the rest of my time I spend on like community related things. But like, community related things is just mostly like chatting with people, and I enjoy doing it anyway, but that's variable depending on how busy I am.
Yeah, got it. Hey, so I noticed just really quickly, well, on the note of community, so there's quite a few marketplaces, even kind of the group itself, that are understanding the importance of community, and kind of creating groups within Slack or Circle. You know, in your experience, are you using Circle and Slack, or, you know, which kind of platform for community?
Yeah, I'm using Circle and Slack. To be completely honest, like the uptake of either really hasn't been like mind blowing. Like managing a community takes time, and I think like one thing to keep in mind is like, a lot of people sign up because they want something from you. And, you know, usually what makes them sign up to your platform is not the community aspect of things. Okay. Like, I know we like to think it is, but like, honestly, freelancers sign up to the Unicorn Factory because they want work. You can get them to stay by putting effort into the community side of things, but that's a two-sided story. You know, like, if you, especially when you're doing it online, you know, it's kind of like, you can do all sorts of initiatives and you can use all sorts of amazing tools, you know, but at the end of the day, you kind of, the quality of like your community engagement is not just dependent on like how great your tool is, or, you know, how many like channels you set up that like do all sorts of different things. It comes down to like how everyone's engaging with each other. And we've got like a few people who are great community people. But what they do is they don't do all their community engagement in Slack. They go and message each other and catch up for coffees. And like, that is, and to be completely honest, I kind of prefer that over like someone messaging in Slack. So to be completely honest with you, like, the community side of thing isn't like something that has like really, I don't know, it hasn't been something that is like, that I've tried to force, or that I've wanted to become like a real good thing, or like become a real huge thing, because I think at the end of the day, my priority is to get them work. And if they want to participate in the forum or in the Slack channels, it's there. If not, that's cool. Like, I feel like that in itself is another job to manage, and I'm kind of like, it's not on the top of my priority list.
Got it. Yeah, thanks for sharing more on that. It definitely is a full-time job to manage communities. So
yeah,
cool. Well, yeah, thanks for taking time to you know, dive into Unicorn Factory, and yeah, just show us kind of under the hood, and you know, answer some questions for us here. So really appreciate it.
no worries. Thanks for having
Cool.
me.
Awesome.
It was really great to, catch up with everyone. And if you have any questions, hit me up. I'm on Twitter or on my website. I'm around. I like having chats.
Yeah. I'll include some links in the description of this when I post the recording too. So
Cool.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining in also. All right.
See ya.